Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton with Supply Chain Now. We're back here at Gartner Supply Chain Symposium in Orlando as we continue our coverage with talking with some of the big movers and shakers in supply chain, just like Whitney Shlesinger, Vice President Global Planning and Logistics with McCormick and Company. Whitney, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Well, so nice to talk with you. Jake Barr, the John Wayne of Global Supply Chain, got us connected, and I tell you, we'll see if you can stop in.
All right.
Maybe we'll get an interview or an autograph with him. Who knows?
We on The Godfather, but John Wayne works too.
The Godfather. I like that. I'm gonna add that to my collection of nicknames. All right. So Whitney, before we dive into all things supply chain, I can't wait look at your gain your insights there. But I want to start with your kids. So you've
Yes.
got an 8-year-old daughter
8-year-old daughter, Brett.
and a 5-year-old son.
My almost 6-year-old son, James.
And lacrosse and baseball respectively. They're very passionate. So you spend a portion of your time managing sports logistics. Is that right?
Yeah, we sure do. Any parent who has spring sports in the swing of things right now is being pulled in a million different directions as we finish the school year. We're getting to the end of seasons. We're starting up all of the conferences and the finals and everything. So it's a wild time right now in the life of the parent.
Oh, that brings back so many memories. My kids have kind of shifted from, my oldest does cheerleading now. She's really serious about cheerleading. My younger two kind of shifted more into music and arts, respectively. So it's a little different vibe. But I remember back in the day, as we're following along baseball, and at the end of the baseball game, my son might be playing or my daughter might be playing, but the other two kids,
Mhm.
they're waiting to see if there was extra snacks that
Oh,
the
I mean,
teen parents
that
brought.
life is real. My son, every time, so I'm assistant a coach for my daughter's lacrosse team, which has been a really amazing experience getting to teach and coach 8-year-old girls trying to learn the sport and all the things of teamwork and being on a team and winning and losing. It's been fantastic. But at the end of every game, my son is waiting to see if there are extra snacks to enjoy after their game.
I love that. That's a great memory. Great memory. Well, I hope you have a wonderful time as you get back into the lacrosse and baseball scenes as you leave here in Orlando.
Games this week when we get home.
Wow, how about that? Tell you. All right, well, let's talk about the Gartner Supply Chain Symposium. We're recording this at the beginning of day 2. I tell you, day 1 was a bunch of hits and a bunch of conversations here, a lot of buzz from the presentations and the keynotes. And you're leaving here almost in brain overload, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna have 17 pages of notes, key takeaways.
Well, I
But
think my team's that excited I'm here because I come back with lots of ideas.
well, it's a double-edged sword for sure. Yeah. But this is your second time here at Gartner Supply Chain Symposium, right? What is one of your favorite elements to events like this?
Sure. Well, I have the fortunate pleasure of having a Gartner peer partner. So John Coyle is my business partner, and we get to speak every month. And he's a massive help and support in me shaking out my strategic initiatives with my team. And year one for me was all about leveraging as much knowledge building as I could from the analysts in the different sessions. And now that I'm here for year 2 and I have 2 years in this role, it's really becoming more about those peer connections and the peer networking opportunities. We're all working on the same things. And I am one of those people that loves to reapply with pride. And so it's really just a fantastic opportunity to hear what everybody's doing out there and how they're solving these big opportunities.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts as well. The kindred spirits and the camaraderie. One of our big common themes from day one, kind of along these lines, is how global supply chain can really be a unifying force,
Yes.
right? In fact, we had a supply chain practitioner spend a bunch of time in Washington, D.C., of all places, and he spoke about it, how it brought even the most divisive parties together. And
Right.
that's good news, isn't it?
It is good news.
Yeah. And a shout out to John with Gartner. I bet it's a great sounding board for you to bounce with.
Oh, he absolutely has. I mean, I've been leading a pretty transformational agenda the last 2 years within my function at McCormick, and having that outside in perspective of somebody who's been in industry, who's done the work to be able to coach and help me formulate step 1, step 2, step 3, but also really significantly is set up peer connects along the way. That's been incredibly helpful. You don't feel as alone trying to lead something in your company when you can just have a phone call with somebody at a peer company to say, I've been there, I've done this. You're on the right path. Even getting that reassurance is really helpful.
Yeah, wouldn't it's great? The power of practitioner connections.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. I'm going to talk supply chain planning here in just a second. You were sharing something with me pre-show. about what folks may not know about McCormick. Share, if you would, share a little bit about, you were talking about some of the spices and some of the, the big movers, and then you were sharing some of the things that folks don't know about the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So McCormick's a really iconic company. If you live in the Maryland area, which I do, Old Bay is our bread and butter. If you're watching the Orioles on TV, you're hearing shout outs of Old Bay. But we are actually, I mean, we are flavoring the world, whether it's at home in your cabinet with our McCormick brands, your vanilla, your cinnamon, your garlic powder, your onion powder, your chili powder, your taco seasoning, your chili seasoning. We have grill mates for all the marinades for your summer grilling. We also recently have acquired some other iconic brands in our portfolio. We have Cholula hot sauce, we have Frank's hot sauce, we have French's mustard and ketchup. So we continue to expand the footprint that we have in the consumer goods space. But what was really big learnings for me when I joined the company is we actually have a really robust portfolio on custom restaurants, custom manufacturers, and a flavor house that we've acquired since I've been at McCormick. So we are truly flavoring your experiences if you're at a restaurant, you're at a convenience store, or you're eating at home. So we are touching the flavors of lives of people everywhere.
I love it. Is that Flavor House in Flavor Town where Guy Fieri's always talking about me?
No, I wish I'd never been there, but we are operating off out of Illinois, and
Uh,
it's a really lovely place to be too.
I don't know. I might argue you're the mayor of Flavor Town based on what you're just sharing. But also Frank's hot sauce. Me and my son. My son loves these breakfast sandwiches I make, and he puts Frank's hot sauce all over that. It's not too hot,
It's not
especially for kids.
well, and I never ate hot sauce before I worked at McCormick, and now I have my favorites. So if I'm not putting Frank's, the green pepper Cholula is divine, and I put it on
Okay.
my breakfast every morning.
Oh man, Whitney, as we were talking about pre-show, you're making us starving here. All right, let's talk about supply chain planning. The game is changing, it's transforming, especially in recent years. A lot of that due to not just human-powered innovation, right? But the golden age of supply chain tech. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So, in your view, when it comes to those organizations that really optimize their supply chain planning success, what are some of the things they focus on?
Yeah, I think the first step is having a vision. What are you trying to build? Because you have to start with the end in mind. And that takes a lot of effort too, because the landscape of technology availability is changing every day. And so, what we're trying to do at McCormick across our end to end supply chain is really start at the building blocks. How do we have things such as data availability? How do we have really clear documented processes? How do we have the right organizational structure? So, when we go and we leverage these technology opportunities, we're ready to embrace them and get the full value of that technology. We are kind of playing that short term, long term game at every given point in time. But it really starts with what are we trying to build with that end in mind and staying current in that view.
Yeah, I like it. Vision, which will lead to the full value. I bet you and I both, I know I've worked in organizations that have a technology implementation, but we end up, for whatever reason, using about 20% of the full suites of power and value. And usually that leads to more purchases and more implementations. But I love that. Starting with the vision, let's shift gears. Let's talk about, speaking of Jake Barr, the University of Kentucky's annual supply chain forum. I think you spoke there as a keynote, and I did a little homework. And I think one of the really popular takeaways that folks gathered from your keynote is you spoke about supply chain transformation, which you're leading, big part of that at McCormick. And you spoke about the importance of establishing optimal organizational design
Yes.
and process standards up front before we get to implementing stuff.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I have to say, Jake did a wonderful job of building the guest list of speakers at that event because I definitely took away as much as I presented and gave in that moment. But I really wanted to talk about something I am doing as a leader in my company, less theoretical, but more concrete. And so I talked about an initiative called the Trinome Initiative that I'm leading, where it really sets a cultural framework
Yeah.
and process and people expectation around every one of our manufacturing sites. And it focuses on how do we make sure the materials planning leader at the site, the supply planning leader, and the procurement leader for each site is established, formed, and operating from a strategic point of view.
Okay.
Not showing up and tactically talking to each other about siloed pieces of data, but really having that view of leadership at each of our sites, because that really helps us make sure that the conflicts that happen between all the different functions and teams
Yeah.
has a place to go be discussed and elevated for support and help. It's all about functional cohesiveness and end-to-end strategy and mindset. I had a peer connection through Gartner, and one of the peers that I was speaking to said, sometimes the best plan for the company isn't the best plan for the site. And we didn't have the framework and organization for that to really be discussed and elevated. And now we do. We've just actually launched that initiative in our company last week. So it was a good example of me saying, hey, here's something in my head, sharing it in loose terms at a conference, and then actually applying and implementing it back home.
I love that for a variety of reasons, but one of them, you kind of gave me a eureka moment. Because we talk about alignment a ton, because this is important, right? But you used the word cohesion,
Yes.
which is like alignment multiply.
Yes.
And there's a big difference between the two. Would you agree? And that cohesion can keep, especially a widespread footprint of leaders and plants and sites like you're describing, can keep them holding on as we get through these tougher times. Is that kind of, I
Yes,
see the same?
absolutely. I mean, it's really making sure that how do you explain the game? Like, what's the game that they're in? What are the rules of the game, and what does winning look like?
Yeah.
And helping them to have a place for that support at the leadership level, so that it truly is all those amazing people that have their lens of the world and what needs to happen, and give them that forum to work together to drive the results we need as an organization. And again, it really, as you can see, your forecast at the site level, at the line level, at the SKU level, it needs to be really healthy so that the plants can align their plans and buy the materials in line.
Yeah.
There's a give and take across all those functions and all those relationships. And so it's really embracing that and getting that operating at a high level.
Whitney, I love it. I'm gonna make a bad pun, but that's what I did. Dad, lots of dad jokes. You have all the ingredients
Yep.
to enable the teams wherever they are, their success, and that's kind of what I'm hearing in your responses. Okay, where's your next keynote? Because I want to be there.
I don't know. That was my first one. And
Okay. Oh, really?
yeah, everybody seemed to enjoy it. So I hope I have an opportunity
We're gonna have
to
a
do it
world
again.
tour. We're gonna have a
Yeah,
world
exactly.
tour. Whitney Shlesinger world tour.
Okay. Let's talk about challenging. I mean, you got your organization, McCormick, has facilities across 29 countries. So I want to ask you, when it comes to logistics, operations, and performance, continuous improvement, you name it, what's been a couple of priorities for the organization in the last year or so?
Yeah, absolutely. Assured growth is really critical to our new CEO and our CFO. And so, what I've been trying to do is to make sure that we are building sustainable frameworks and processes for our global support and our global business, for our global brands. And a lot of what the keynote speaker yesterday in the morning was talking about is how do you have really robust, not just processes, but how do you have those feelers out so that you're responding to the threats, but you're also then doing the scenario planning to say, well, what if? What if these things happen? And so it's really around all the elements of supply chain and making sure that as tariffs happen, as supply shortages happen, raw materials, when you're sourcing raw materials from all over the world, things like climate change and climate events, they can send you really off pace of your plan. And it's about making sure we have those global what if scenarios built so that we can respond to successes and challenges rapidly as we continue in our most important growth areas of the business.
I love that, and as you were sharing your response there, it made me think. You were tying it back to yesterday's keynote. You got to be ready, and having run all the scenarios and simulations for that first shoe to drop.
Yep.
But that's not good enough
Uh-uh.
because you got 17 more that's going to follow, maybe 37, depending on the time frame. And that we've got to be a dynamic
Yes.
simulation, dynamic scenario planning, which is critical, right?
Yes. Well, and I think it's you have your external impacts that you have to manage, but you have your internal ones too. I mean, just as simple as what's our 10-year growth rate on a specific category? If you ask a commercial and marketing team, they may say, I have ambitions to grow something 30%. And supply chain people go, well, do I need to invest for that 30%? Or is it really fight? Like, what is it need to be?
Right.
And one of the initiatives I'm leading right now around assured supply is not just what's that first capacity constraint? What are we going to do when we hit that? What's the second move and the third move? Because if you have that mapped out, you're just plotting your growth curve against your actual growth and saying, hey, that decision moved up or it pushed out. And so you're less reactive to the, oh, I'm out of capacity, but you're saying, I'm just executing the playbook and I know what the plays already are. So it's really what can I control and how do I build that framework so I have more time to react to the uncontrollables.
I love it, Whitney. Man, you make it sound so easy. I know we all know it's not easy, but I really, and you've got, I think I read somewhere, you've got a reputation for keeping a really cool head in the most challenging of times. Is that right? That's part of your
What?
MO?
Glad that you've heard that. I think, Sarasi, I would say that that's totally true. I think every challenge is an opportunity. And having grown up in a journey to excellence world, I have an industrial engineering degree. Everything to me is just an opportunity to learn and grow. So I get less focused on there'll be some tactical fix to this solution. But how are we going to emerge from this stronger than we were before? What continuous improvement opportunity do we build on the back end? That's what gives me so much energy and excitement. We have amazing people at McCormick. We can handle the short term pain. We'll get through it together, and then we'll build something stronger on the back end.
I love that. I love that. And by the way, you mentioned your undergrad in industrial engineering. We should throw in a Go Nittany Lions, right?
We are.
Yeah. Penn State. Okay. So I think congratulations is in order. I want to congratulate you as one of the top 100 women in supply chain, as recognized by our friends over at Supply Chain Digital. So I want to ask you with that. We were kind of talking about this from an aviation industry standpoint pre-show. We're talking about the profession and the different demographics and whatnot. Well, in supply chain, we know we need to attract talent from every walk of life. And we also, we're making a little bit of progress, but we need to recruit a lot more women. And when they get into our industry, we got to better empower them and enable them to, move into senior levels of leadership, much like you.
Yes.
So your thoughts, how can organizations in the industry do a better job of that?
Yeah. Well, first, I have the opportunity to serve on 2 different alumni boards at Penn State. And so I'm just heavily encouraged by the amount of women that I am seeing involved in engineering programs at that level. I was at times one of the only females in some of my engineering classes. And now, as I walk through the buildings and through the halls of Penn State, I am seeing much more diverse classrooms, it just lifts my heart and it just really makes me excited. So I think we're seeing the build coming from the universities. And, we've been focusing at McCormick to do things like build programs such as WISC, Women in Supply Chain, and focusing on recruitment strategies at universities that focus on diversity, not just gender diversity, but diversity in general.
Right.
And then it's around those development programs that we're trying to apply at the work to help create mentorships, not really formal mentorships, but we call them connections with purpose. And so we're helping women that are earlier in their career connect informally with women that are later on in their career, just to create those sort of buddy relationships. Because we hear so much about sponsorship and mentorship. It's how do you build that organically?
Yeah.
But what's really exciting is that I kind of don't like to think I'm the age that I am, but for women that are starting in their career, they have more people that look like them in leadership positions.
Yeah.
And I know at McCormick, my female leaders, and we are fortunate to have a lot of them, are really trying to make sure that our early career women have access to us and can learn from what we've already gone through.
Love that. And you mentioned WISC. What was that? WISC?
Yes.
Right? Women in Supply Chain. What a great, we need more organizations standing up those types of associations and groups. Good stuff there. WISC
Yeah.
at McCormick. Okay. So the $1 billion question in these inflationary times, Whitney, how can folks learn more about, connect with you and learn more about the cool things that McCormick's up to?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously McCormick.com, we have a lot of platforms across LinkedIn and our website. I'm on LinkedIn, would be happy to connect with anybody with further questions. And I would just say we're doing some really amazing things at McCormick, and I'm so proud. Our America's lead for supply chain is Amy Hagler, and she's been an absolutely excellent mentor for myself. And, I know that it's something we're really passionate about, giving back and trying to help people out where we can.
I love that. Not only the mentorship, but kind of another common theme throughout our whole conversation that you shared a couple of times is that power of professional and practitioner connections.
Yeah.
Whether it's inside an organization or outside. And that's a great tip for everyone out there that's trying to figure out their own career journey.
Absolutely.
Whitney Shlesinger, Vice President, Global Planning and Logistics with McCormick and Company. Thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Folks, hopefully you enjoyed this great chat with Whitney and as much as I did. Stay tuned as we continue our coverage here at Gartner Supply Chain Symposium 2025. And you can find it all over on our YouTube channel or at supplychainnow.com.